Yo, let's talk ball. So, he's gonna be here for the video. I don't know how much he'll say or what he'll say. And there's another guy off screen, and he's a little dumb. He's a little slow in the head, so he might not give too much input, but they'll be here accompanying me for this video. But we are still just talking ball. We are talking about all the pre-drafts trades, which I would say it's the biggest trades that have happened before the draft. I mean, the AD trade was before the draft. I would say that one's probably the biggest. But I mean, the stuff like the Russ trade was during the draft. A lot of trades are usually during draft night, or while it's happening. So I would say it's some of the biggest trade talks and rumors we've had. We still don't know what some people are going to do with their picks. It seems like Portland is going to keep their pick, which we weren't sure about earlier this week. But this video is all trade talks and everything that's been happening with so much sudden movement in the basketball world. The main one, the biggest talk, has been the Wizards blowing the entire franchise up, completely tunneling in on the rebuild, not even doing a soft rebuild. I mean, they traded Kristaps Porzingis, who was, I would say, their best player. I mean, he averaged like 23 a game.
Debatably best player.
Debatably best player on his team, on their team, borderline all-star this year. Away, and they got Tyus Jones, a couple of firsts. What firsts were they?
The Grizzlies' 25th overall pick
this year,
and then a 2024 unprotected first-round pick for the Grizzlies.
Exactly. Which, I mean, 2 unprotected first is a huge deal for them, especially since they didn't really get much first-round draft capital in that original Bradley Beal deal.
And with Ja being out the first 25 games, that Grizzlies pick could have more value to it.
Exactly. I mean, they could be worse. I genuinely believe that, I mean, this draft is obviously a big deal, and it's a very big draft. I mean, there were teams that were holding out, blowing it up for this draft, and we still don't know much about next draft, obviously, but getting that unprotected pick, getting the 25th pick this year, could streamline their rebuild a little bit.
Yeah.
But obviously we gotta talk about it from the Celtics' point of view, that they're giving away what is basically the heart and soul of that city in Marcus Smart. But I just genuinely think that he brings so much defensively, and he brings so much like just heart and spirit to like a very, other than maybe like Al Horford, young team, right? Or an experienced team even. I mean, Derek White now isn't young, but he also doesn't have much time in the playoffs.
He definitely brings a spark that most young players in the league can't.
Yeah.
Bring in like dire situations at the end of a game when you need a bucket or you need to stop. Like he's there.
Yeah.
And he'll always, be motivating and
yeah. And we don't really know what Porzingis. I mean, I think the Porzingis fit, I do have to say, I think the Porzingis fit is great, right? I do think that other than maybe not really playmaking all that much, he plays very similarly to Al Horford, right? I mean,
kind of a stretch forward, can attack too.
Yeah, he really also defensively has shown a lot of promise, right? And obviously the biggest thing with Porzingis has always been, is he healthy? Is he going to be healthy? I mean, that's why Dallas traded him in the first place, right? But, I mean, he had the healthiest season he's ever had this year, right? This year, he played 65 games. I actually fact checked something before we're starting to record. He played 65 games, and they stopped him from playing the last 6-7 games. So he could have had a 7-game season. As I was saying, he played a lot of games this year for the first time in his career. We saw him be healthy. We saw him be similar to his old self in New York. I felt like in Dallas, he was a little scared to, like, for example, attack the basket because he was scared of getting hurt again. And he was scared of disappointing his team again. But, I mean, dude's tall as hell. Like, dude is going to have to score.
Yeah.
Inside. And I feel like this year he really showed that he's still able to do that. And he was able to do that without being hurt. And so I think the fit there is going to work out. I mean, they still have Malcolm Brogdon. Derek White played a lot of point guard minutes this year. And so I really overall like the trade.
Maybe they draft a point guard with that 25th pick.
Maybe, but I don't even think it's necessary. I mean, Derek White played a lot of point guard minutes. Malcolm Brogdon played a lot of point guard minutes. You know, I think...
Beyond that, though, who would they have for a backup?
I mean, they have Payne Pritchard still on that team. I mean, they were deemed... The reason why a lot of people thought they were at championship favorites, I mean, the reason why they made it to the conference finals was a lot of people genuinely believed in the team's depth. Some people said they were the deepest team in basketball, right? And them being able to trade away a player of the caliber of Marcus Smart and still be okay at a certain position and still have a better starting guard than some other playoffs teams, right? I mean, Malcolm Brogdon just won 6 Man of the Year, you know? And obviously, though, he sometimes can even get hurt. Like we said, if either him or Derek White got hurt, Payne Pritchard is still there. We've seen flashes of him being able to be a good basketball player.
Potentially, with that reference of having better starting point guards in playoff teams, Miami, they have Kyle Lowry. I'd say at this point, I'd take Brogdon over Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
And they just made it to the finals, so I definitely think that with the other pieces they have, they could still make it far.
Yeah. I genuinely think that this team got better. I think the team got better, technically wise. Now, but I mean, I was saying until the video cut out that Marcus Smart is going to bring a lot into that Grizzlies locker room, and especially for such a young locker room, I think he's overall going to be a big addition for them. We've seen that he can lead a young roster, at least somewhat, on that front of, hey, we need to buckle down, we need to do this, we need to do this. He can lead a defense even, and then now you got Jared, now you got Marcus Smart, you know.
And he's more than willing to guard. I wouldn't say all 5 positions, but I'd definitely say at least 1 through 3.
He'll try and guard all 5
yeah,
positions.
Definitely, with his mindset.
Yeah,
for sure.
He'll at the very least try to do that.
Which I think could be a big break for some, like Jaren, who gets in foul trouble a lot. I think not that they would switch Marcus Smart onto a 5, like, permanently or something like that, but like one possession here and there to just save him, give him a break.
Yeah.
You know, save him from foul troubles.
Yeah. I mean, he's had, I feel like on the Celtics, kind of like the Pat Bev effect that he had on the T-Wolves a couple years ago.
Just brought energy to the team.
Just brings energy, and skillfully he's a little better than Pat Bev.
Yeah, definitely.
But then, about an hour or 2 back now, Jordan Poole, every girl's favorite man, got traded over to the Washington Wizards for nothing. I hope y'all caught that. I hope the mic caught that. He got traded over for Chris Paul, and
we have a Warriors fan right
here. Yeah, we have a Warriors fan.
Just wanted to let you know.
That's why I'm not showing my face.
So he might be a little bit more vocal when it comes to this one. But for Chris Paul,
Rollins.
Ryan Rollins, Ryan Rollins, and a second-round pick for Chris Paul straight up.
Why just CP3 though? Why?
They don't have anything else to offer, y'all.
They don't make the deal.
Very vocal about this trade, but I think that overall, this trade for the Wizards is a win.
Yeah, definitely younger player.
Younger player, we've seen him perform, so we know he has that upside. But honestly, if he doesn't perform, I mean, the team right now, who's their best player? If they re-sign him, Kyle Kuzma, who just declined his player option.
You're talking before the Poole trade.
No, after the Poole trade.
I think Jordan Poole.
I mean, either one. Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma.
Both
right?
on the same skill level.
Very wishy-washy players. Both very streaky players.
Especially for being your number one player.
Yeah,
Sure,
they're extremely streaky players.
Like unreliable to be your
Especially
number
during
one
the
option.
playoffs.
Not on the level that you would want a number one player to be. But obviously, it's very different when Jordan Poole doesn't have the expectations of, oh, it's championship or bust because the rest of the team is 30 plus years old.
He can just go out there and cook.
He can just go out there and do whatever the hell he wants, right? And I think that freedom for Jordan Poole is exactly what he needs, right? I didn't know if the Warriors were planning on trading him, but I think for his own development, it's what he needs.
Yeah.
And for the Wizards, they're getting a guy who we've seen huge upside, and if he doesn't work out, I mean, then they're bad, which is not a bad thing for them. For them to be bad, they no longer have a team full of 30-plus-year-old Bradley Beal, about to turn 28. Kristaps Porzingis, Kyle Kuzma's about to turn 28.
They don't have that need to feel like, I gotta say, in contention. They can just be bad and ride on picks, you know?
Yeah, they can be bad and be okay with that, right? So honestly, if I had to personally, this is a lot earlier than my opinions. I feel like on the Bradley Beal deal, I had obviously a lot more thoughts on it because I let the day mellow out. But immediately after this trade, I would say this trade could be an A caliber trade, on a grading scale for the Washington Wizards. Because I mean, I don't see where the faults in this trade are.
So I guess my point was that Chris Paul is an aging player that, has a big contract, and I don't really think there's any need for them to have
That type of player.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are days of having their star player be above the age of 30 or older.
Above the age of 35.
Yeah, I think those days should definitely be over for Washington. Just focus on young, good core, building that up, and then working from there.
I mean, it's a team that hasn't had success basically since being the Wizards, since becoming the Washington Wizards, haven't had playoff success. I mean, the furthest they got was to the second round with John Wall. Clearly a team that they can't really hold on to the John Wall, Bradley Beal days, or even the Bradley Beal days, and they can't hold on to that contention because they can't allow themselves to get stuck in mediocrity. And I think they're allowing themselves with this trade to, hey, if they're mediocre this year, that means they're a really young team that, for example, the Thunder were mediocre as hell this year, but they have an average age of 23 years old.
So that's a good sign.
Which
They
means
can improve.
everyone's going, people could get better. People will learn. Players will learn, right? And the same group of players, 2-3 years down the line, add a couple draft picks here and there, could become much better than mediocre. And it's not, they're now on an uphill rather than a downhill.
I think there's a major difference. There's two kinds of mediocres in this league. I think it's an old mediocre, which is a really tough situation for any franchise because you don't really know where to go from there. If you're an old team and you're mediocre, it's not that's definitely a really good spot for any team in the league to be at.
That's like one of the best situations a team could be
Right. Yes.
in. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen, we just saw the Grizzlies come out of that sort of young mediocrity and be very successful from there. I mean, maybe they haven't had the playoff success that they've desired, but at least in the regular season have been very good. And we are just seeing the Thunder be one of the most appealing teams in basketball because of the development of their players.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like the conversation almost flips entirely when we're talking about the Warriors side of the deal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about the good first because I don't want to be entirely negative, but there is a lot of question marks with this deal. The biggest positive is they didn't give up a first. They were able to acquire Chris Paul, which has been shown they can still play very quality ball without giving up that first round pick, which I think is a big deal in this trade. If they had given up a first, I think this trade would have been lost entirely.
Yeah. I think if that was a robbery from the Wizards.
Yeah.
For sure.
But it does put a cap on this team. I mean, just 2 years ago, right? Everyone was raging about the double timelines, talking about how, they got Wiggs and Poole who are still young. They got Moody and Kuminga who just got drafted, and everyone was talking about these 2 timelines, right? This year was kind of the year where everybody saw, realistically, there's only one timeline. That's the Stephen fucking Curry timeline. I mean, he is that team right now, right? And I mean, they're kind of showing that off with this deal, that they're not scared to trade anybody for just one more. The issue I find with it is more, I at first I didn't think they could put together, right? But I mean, we've seen Curry perform with other guards or other ball dominant players pre-MVP days with Monte Ellis, whether it was with Kevin Durant, though not a guard, is very ball dominant, is very ISO heavy, right? And he is one of the best off-ball players of all time, as well as on-ball. So at first I thought, they can't play at the same time. But now I'm thinking this deal is just odd in the sense of we don't know what to expect from Chris Paul coming into this year. We saw his first, I would say, big dip. Not these playoffs, but the ones before.
Yeah.
And this year was just an even bigger dip. So we don't know how much lower he is going to go this year, right? Now, if he stays at least the level that he was at this year, I would say it was a good trade. Or maybe not a good trade, but I would say they can get the results that they wanted out of the trade. But we don't know if that's going to happen, right? And you're giving up Jordan Poole, who, though streaky, is young, right? And you're giving up your best young asset. Right? You already gave up Wiseman before, right? Realistically, the only people they got on that team that is young, Andrew Wiggins, who's what, 29, 30? And he's like one of the youngest players on the court that's actually going to be getting PT. Because we don't know how much playing time Kuminga and Moody are really realistically going to get unless they get traded. I don't know what lineups we're expecting to see here, where I'm imagining we're going to be seeing some CP3 off the bench lineup, some CP3 with
Curry was like the 2, I'd say.
yeah, Curry at the 2. We're gonna see some with Clay. We're gonna see some with Wiggs at the 4. Depending on everything that happens with Draymond, if he stays, and Draymond at the 5.
I think that this trade specifically shakes up the whole Draymond conversation. I think this trade, compared like the roster they have now with CP3
Draymond is involved in that?
I think he is.
You think he is?
I think this trade gives them reason to keep Draymond because of the dynamics that he brings and everything on and off the court. Although he is a loud player, he is a leader just like Marcus Smart, as we were talking about earlier. And I think, you could take it either way, that now they have Chris Paul, they don't need him. I think this trade gives them more of a reason to keep him because of
I think
the chemistry that he brings.
I think it could go both ways, right? Because obviously, he brings out chemistry, something off the court. Chris Paul used to be the president of the Players Association, which Draymond has before been very close with the people there. But also, what Draymond brings offensively to this team, which before was grab you a couple offensive rebounds, hit you with hard screens, but the biggest one was, oh, we're not running a fast break, let me take the ball up the court, right? Let me have Curry run through his 77 screens, right? But now Chris Paul could more than easily do that, right? He could more than easily throw the lobs to Kevin Looney or Andrew Wiggins. He could more than easily set up for Clay, for Steph. And we were seeing Dre come off the bench during the playoffs, right? This team had a very disappointing playoff run. They had probably either expected or wanted to beat Sacramento in a lot less amount of games, right? They probably wanted to not have to go to that Game 7 against such a young, unexperienced team.
Yeah.
And against the Laker team with so many question marks, they probably thought, hey, maybe we can do this. Hey, maybe we can at least go up against Denver. And they weren't even able to make it that far coming into the season as title favorites.
I think, the whole Warriors side, there's many, many cons, but there's also some positives with this trade. And I think it really just depends on how they play, how it turns out, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued to see how their season goes for sure.
Yeah. If I had to give it my very early grade, before I was thinking a lot lower, but as of right now, especially thinking about the fit of things, if everything with the whole Draymond situation, just everything in general with this team can go well, and if the fit is right, if CP3 doesn't play that much worse, which, though yes, all are questions people have with this deal, I would give it a C+. Anywhere from a C+ to a B-. I think the trade could bring them what they want, but the reason why it's not a higher grade is simply because if it doesn't give them that could be the end of the Warriors for a while, right? A team that dominated what now feels like the better part of a decade this could be the last big thing we see from them. So yeah, that is what I think so far.
A lot of movement.
Yeah, which is exciting. We saw probably the biggest parity in this year's season, which was exciting. It was exciting to see teams not make it as far as people thought, see teams make it further than people thought, and go into a season with no one in mind of who's going to win. Maybe having some idea, but that idea possibly getting destroyed in the first round or in the conference finals, and that's exciting to see in the NBA. That's what, as much fun as it can be to see teams dominate, to see legacies of players being built, seeing draft brings more of that, and I'm hoping that these trades bring more of that and can elevate these teams to possibly the level that they were at, making it to the finals with the Warriors and Celtics, or bring teams like the Wizards a much needed rebuild and a much needed rebranding